And a TGIF, everyone. Welcome into the First Call podcast. Alongside Jeff Siegel, I'm Jeremy Plonk. We're back after a 1 week. We got a layoff line in the past performances for us. Jeff, a little under the weather, so we missed our Tuesday show. It's official this week, but good to have you back, partner. Hopefully you're feeling a little better.
Vet scratch on Tuesday. I intended to actually have that podcast, our weekly Tuesday podcast. It's official. In fact, I actually went ahead and did the rundown and everything, and I woke up in the morning and I couldn't talk. Had a cold and still do, but we'll gut it out and look ahead to weekend racing. And it's a little bit of a quiet week, but there's some good gambling opportunities, I think. And so we'll see if we can make some money as we take over and wait for the big meeting at Gulfstream to start in a couple of weeks. That'll be fun. Yep. What do they call that meeting now?
The championship meet.
Championship meeting. Okay, yeah, that means the arrival of Pletcher and gang, with all their young horses. That'll be fun. We'll wrap up Del Mar right after Thanksgiving and kind of cruise through December before Santa Anita starts. But there's money to be made, and we're going to try to make it this weekend.
We'll be here this weekend next, and then a reminder, we take Thanksgiving week off, so there will be no podcast for First Call on Thanksgiving week, celebrating the holiday. So we'll be with you this weekend next. Let's get handicapping for our 8 stakes races that we have each and every week on the First Call podcast. For those of you watching on X or on YouTube, be sure to hit the like, put comments in the comment section, share this out with your friends, help us grow our audience. And for those of you listening on the traditional audio channels, here are the 8 races. Jeff and I will handicap over the next half hour or so. We'll go to Aqueduct for a pair of stakes races, the Notebook in the Central Park, to Gulfstream Park for the Juvenile Fillies Sprint, and then to Woodbine for the rescheduled Autumn Stakes. Then we'll have the Kennedy Road as scheduled. The Churchill Downs card includes the Claiming Crown, the blue-collar Breeders' Cup, if you will. Races 4 through 11 on the card are Claiming Crown Championship races. The Claiming Crown for the Claiming horses and Starter Allowance Company. We'll talk about the nuances of that. The Jewel and the Emerald are the 2 races we will handicap, races 10 and 11 on the program. And then race number, our 8th race of our stakes previews this weekend will be the Desi Arnaz Stakes from Del Mar, the highly anticipated Bob Baffert showdown of runners in his barn in that one. So Claiming Crown is really the headliner this week, and it kind of fills a void because there's not a lot of big stakes action this weekend, and you don't need stakes horses for the Claiming Crown, so that's the good thing about that. It's a starter allowance series, if you will, and we'll talk about those specific races in just a little bit, but we're going to get started with some traditional stakes races. First up, we go to Aqueduct on Saturday for the Notebook Stakes. These are New York bred 2-year-olds, Colts and Geldings here, sprinting 6 furlongs. The Notebook, named for the D. Wayne Lucas trained New York bred back in the mid-'80s, started his career off with a bang. He won the Boneyard, the Damon Runyon, went on to win the Kentucky Jockey Club at Churchill Downs, had a cup of coffee on the 3-year-old trail, ran 3rd to Brian's time in the Florida Derby, but Notebook, best known as a sprinter, and his race is at 6 furlongs. So Jeff Siegel, as we handicap this field of 7, who do you like in this one?
You never know what you're going to get with New York breds. You can get a good field. You can get a weak field. I think we've got a pretty strong one here with 2 horses that are 2 geldings that have proven they can move. Man in France won his debut by almost 8 lengths, earned an 82 buyer number, very sharp in victory. And the colt that he beat, or the gelding that he beat in that race, Kenny B, came back to frank the form by coming back and blowing out his foes by 8 lengths in his next start. Funny thing is, though, Kenny B, when he came back in his second start, even though he'd had his head handed to him by Man in Finance in his debut, he actually came back and ran faster in the second start than Man in Finance did when he beat him. And also, Kenny B is going from the inside to the outside in the draw, and I believe he's quicker than Man in Finance. So all in all, even though it's staring you right in the face, these 2 horses have met once before, and Man in Finance won in a romp. I really think you're going to see a form reversal here. I like Kenny B to turn the tables this time. Again, very impressive in victory. He's a good mover, good athlete, like the outside draw, quicker than a Man in France, I believe. Man in Finance, I believe. And I think Kenny B, even though he's clearly and logically the second choice, not the favorite, I think he's going to turn the tables on Man in Finance.
Rajiv Mirage riding. He was aboard last time and aboard in both starts. Let's go back and take a look last time out for Kenny B winning at Aqueduct.
right in behind them. At the rail, there comes Joker on Fire, and the wide run is Volatile Situation as they reach the top of the stretch. Kenny B just keeps extending that stride, and look at Kenny B open up here. Kenny B is now opened up by 4 widening lengths inside the final furlong and is just demolishing this field. Kenny B, a 16th left to go, and Kenny B, Romero, Mirage. They will win this one stylishly. Kenny B wins it. Volatile.
Romero Mirage, not Rajiv on that one. My correction on there. Kenny B, Jeff's top pick. A note about the horses in the Notebook Stakes in here. Phoebe and Wonderland, the 4 and the 5 Shoot It True. 2 fillies trained by Wesley Ward. They are both cross-entered on Sunday in the Fillies version of this race called the Key Sense. So we saw the same situation with Wesley Ward at Keeneland in the spring or in the fall meet that just concluded, where he had a couple fillies entered in the 2-year-old Colt Stakes. He saved one to run against the boys and kept the other one for the next day stakes races. So I would expect one of those two to come out, Phoebe and Wonderland, and then Shoot It True. One of them runs Saturday. The other one probably runs on Sunday. I doubt he will scratch both of them, but strong competition in this race. When you see what's in the entry box with Man and Finance and Kenny B, maybe he'll opt to scratch both and run them against each other on Sunday. But at Keeneland, he did 1-1. If you want to look at how Wesley Ward might shake things out there in the stakes race on Saturday, the Notebook. Let's go to the 9th race on the card Saturday at Aqueduct. It is the Central Park Stakes. If you're a Friends fan, not to be mistaken for Central Perk, the coffee shop, but the Central Park, named for, of course, the big New York City park. A mile on the grass here as turf racing wraps up this weekend in New York. Final weekend of turf racing in the Big Apple. Weather's still holding pretty well. Temperatures have dropped in the Northeast into the 50s this week. It's been cooler for sure than it has been, but certainly not brisk and bad fall weather to this point, Jeff. So another good weekend of turf racing, we would suspect. How do you see the Central Park shaking out?
I was very impressed visually with Not For Hire's debut win. He ran 109 flat, but he came the last quarter in 23, according to the clock. I assume it's accurate. Maybe it isn't, but visually he looked like he was quickening. He made the lead that day, switched off midway, and then at the top of the stretch, when the moment of truth arrived, sometimes they open up, sometimes they kind of wave the white flag. Well, Not For Hire re-broke. Ended up winning his maiden by 5 lengths, did it with plenty left. He's, again, by Not This Time, and out of a mare by Lemon Drop Kid. He should have no trouble staying the mile. Right. He looks like he's the controlling speed. He's listed at 6-1. I'm not sure if he'll get that, but I do like him. I think he's a colt with some ability. George Weaver has got good stats across the board with this kind of horse, and Lascano got to know him in his maiden win, comes right back and rides him again, put him on the lead, and improve your position from there. I like Not For Hire to go from maiden to stakes and win again in the 9th race to Central Park at Aqueduct.
Let's take a look at that debut win, because we've got some stakes experienced horses fans may be a little familiar with, but this one just with the one race on the resume. Let's get caught up quickly with Not For Hire.
Stormy Proud is now shoved along here from third towards the inside of Stormy Birthday, who's made up some ground. The top 4 at the top of the lane, and Not For Hire's got plenty, and Not For Hire's kicked away again. Not For Hire's opened up by 3. It's Not For Hire just sprinting away here under Jose Lescano inside that final furlong. Not For Hire is now up by 5. 6 widening lengths. It is all Not For Hire. Got right to the front and a front-running score. Not For Hire wins it. Then came Bakinda.
So, Jeff, Not For Hire, that's your top pick in here. The horses coming out of the Pilgrim Stakes, the 3-4 finishers out of that grade 2 include Early Adapter, the 3rd-place finisher, and Super Swift, another one for George Weaver in here, who came out of that race, or I should say Smooth Breeze came out of that race for Jorge Abreu, finishing 4th. The other stakes horse in here, Super Swift, I was talking about, out of the Atlantic Beach Stakes, they're all harpooned to the outside here, post 8, 9, and 10 for this mile race, 2-turn mile at Aqueduct going on the turf, on the inner turf here. So outside post positions won't help those runners in there. Not For Hire. I don't think post is going to matter for him coming out of that sprint. He should be forward throughout and be in pretty good position, do you think?
I would think so. I think he'll make the lead and work sprinting. That should be able to go do the same thing going a mile. And I think they will be committed to go to the front as opposed to some of these others who might just kind of take back, try to make some cover and make a late run, which is possible. But, it's an intriguing race. I mean, Jack and Jim won from Out of the Clouds in his debut for Graham Motion. Right. Numbers-wise, he's right there with Not For Hire. Different style. But these are second-time starters, and who knows what they're going to do and how much of a leap they're going to make between their first and second start. So it's actually a pretty intriguing race. Again, a better than par stakes for 2-year-olds going a mile on grass.
That is the Central Park, the Notebook, the other co-feature on Saturday at Aqueduct. Let's turn our attention southward down the Atlantic coast of Florida to Gulfstream Park, where the Juvenile Fillies Sprint will be contested at 6.5 furlongs on the main track. You've got some stakes experienced runners in here, Wiggle and Wine coming out of the Florida Sire Stakes series. You've got Mrs. Worldwide coming out of the Presque Isle Debutante, the Ellis Park Debutante. Jeff, but the horse in here that really has the attention was an impressive debut winner, and I know you like her in here. Tell us about La Gioconda.
A couple of things I liked about her. The first thing is that she was in a maiden race and she was even money, so she was supposed to win. And that's important because she won over a sloppy track, and sometimes horses that don't get bet first time out, they didn't show much in the morning, they maybe aren't that much, but they win because they love the slop, and you don't know how they're going to do on fast ground. But this really was bet like it didn't matter what she was running under, and she won it again stylishly. She didn't open up and hang on. She made the lead, switched off, then rebroke, won by 7. I'm not sure who she was beating, but she did from the rail, so that's not always the easiest thing to do. Numbers-wise, it was okay, but she wasn't really knocked about. I expected to come right back, but and the extra half furlong of a 6.5 furlong race as opposed to 6 shouldn't bother her because she just won going 6.5. So yep. I don't think there's any reason why La Gioconda shouldn't come right back and win again. But we'll find out if she's better than just a maiden winner. But I think she probably is.
Gustavo Delgado's had some pretty nice young horses in recent years. This could be his next. Let's go back and take a look at that debut smasher.
Stormy Proud is now shoved along here from third towards the inside of Stormy Birthday, who's made up some ground. The top 4 at the top of the lane, and Not for Hire's got plenty, and Not for Hire's kicked away again. Not for Hire.
But La Gioconda has something the others don't have. She's kicked now to a 5-length lead. Lindsay Smiles has rallied into second with Time Leap, then to the outside Fontana di Trevi. But the hype is definitely worth it here. The daughter of Caro, La Gioconda, a sharp debut winner. She won by 5. Lindsay Smiles second, Fontana di Trevi third. Time.
So it's La Gioconda, Jeff's top pick at Gulfstream Park in the Juvenile Fillies Sprint. We're going to go next north of the border to Woodbine. A couple stakes races there, one on the schedule, one rescheduled from last weekend. Jeff, let's talk a little bit about the situation at Woodbine. The racing last week was canceled mid-card. There were some injuries, fatalities with the main track, and so they had some maintenance issues last Saturday mid-card at Woodbine. They canceled the racing on Sunday at Woodbine to try to get a hold of what was going on there with the surface. They feel confident that they fixed things up. They've been back racing Thursday. They raced today on Friday. So we've got the rescheduled version of the Autumn Stakes, grade 2, 175 grander in there. Field comes back basically intact. Paramount Prince, of course, last year's King's Plate winner, the headline name in there. We handicapped this race a week ago, and we both talked about we're not quite sure where Paramount Prince is right now in his game, and at 1 1/8 where he didn't finish up last out in the Durham Cup. Such a off-putting performance from him in that one that it was hard to take him back this time. A week later, a chance to sleep on it. Your head was groggy and now clear again. Are you still where you were a week ago when it comes to the Autumn Stakes?
I didn't even realize that I'd handicapped this race until I got to the 12 Forever Super. I was going 1 through 12. I said, wait a minute now. This race looks familiar. No, I kind of knew that they were going to run it the Saturday. I had announced that. And they didn't even redraw it. They just left it intact. So I liked Forever Super last time, primarily because he's undefeated, perfect 3 for 3 over a synthetic surface. I also like the fact that he's outside. You figure the 12 hole's no bargain going 1 1/8, but that allow him to kind of drop over and sit second, third, or fourth, which is what he wants to do. There's pace inside. He's going to get a great trip. He's going to have every chance. He's very solid, very consistent on the speed figures. He's won half of his 18 starts. He's in form, and there's no real reason for him not to run his race again, which, based on his numbers and his running style, he should run his race. Now, he's, like I say, undefeated on 3 for 3 on synthetic. He's never run over the Woodbine all weather, but there's no reason why he wouldn't like it. So I went again last week. I liked Forever Super. I don't see any reason why to change. It's the same race. So I'll go with Forever Super. Good stalking trip for trainer Michael Trombetta, and hopefully he can kick on and then prove best. I like the fact that he can win a battle. He did that in his last race, but he can also win off too. So whatever it takes, I think he can do it.
He's won 3 in a row, the most recent of which was the Presque Isle Mile. Let's take a look at that.
Off the turn, KC Chief holds the lead. Outside, Forever Super coming after the leader. Right behind them, Ron Doers asked for more and coming after the top pair. It's still KC Chief and Forever Super. One of these two as they head to the wire. It's going to be Forever Super to win the Presque Isle Mile.
I'm going to take a shot in here with Never Surprise. Respect Forever Super, but Never Surprise, if we can get to 10-1 in the morning line, I think that's an overlay price. This horse has been well bet in all 4 starts since coming north to Kevin Attard. It's a Rapoli stable transfer from Todd Pletcher. The last out just seemed like everything finally came together for this one since going up north. That was on the turf, though. We'll see how that one handles the synthetic. By Constitution out of a Tisnell mare. There was really no turf pedigree there either. And as we mentioned last week, maybe this synthetic will just hit this horse between the eyes because, you've got a dirt pedigree, but a lot of turf experience. So we're hoping that the surface works for Never Surprise, but I really like that last allowance race. He looks like he's heading in the right direction. So I'll take Never Surprise. Jeff's got Forever Super. Those are the picks in the autumn stakes at Woodbine. To the 11th, we go next at Woodbine. Next up on the card, 6 furlong Kennedy Road Stakes. Grade 2, $175,000, 6 furlongs. If they're going under a mile in a stakes race for the boys at Woodbine, Patches O'Houlihan is bound to show up. He's here again, champion sprinter in Canada. We saw him win on the turf last time. They're back to the main track here. But you talk about that turf to main track transfer. You got no balls in this race. The horse who won the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint last year. Larry Ravelli knew he wasn't up to form to go back to the Breeders' Cup this season. So they're taking a road a little bit less traveled, going north for the Kennedy Road Stakes. But no balls against Patches O'Houlihan. This is a pretty interesting group.
It's a good group, and it should be. It's a grade 2 event, $175,000 purse. Good money for Patches O'Houlihan. He's won 11 out of 13, 9 out of 10 over the Woodbine all-weather surface. But it's funny because he can run on anything. I mean, he can run on the all-weather. I don't know if he's ever run on dirt, but I don't think he has.
I don't think so.
But he's got 2 out of 3 lifetime on grass. Why tinker with a good thing, right? Just keep doing what you're doing. He's a 4-year-old gelding and perfect in 2024 with 4 for 4. He's a horse that can make the lead. He doesn't need the lead. If you want him, he can stalk. I don't think the Ray will be any issue for him. He's 4 to 5 for a reason. I just, you're really asking for it if you're picking against Patches O'Houlihan in any circumstance. And I'm not going to do it here. I'm not saying there's a gamble at 4 to 5. But I do think that No Balls has a chance to get back on track here. I think he'll run well. I don't know whether he'll be Patches, but I think he can run second. Recent form against tough horses have been a little bit below his best. Numbers-wise, he's in the mid-90s in the Beyer, so he's not like he's slipping that badly. He's just running against horses he just can't beat again.
Yeah.
And I don't think he can beat Patches O'Houlihan, but he can certainly run second.
Let's take a look at Patches. Last time there were some anxious moments in the stretch as he was drifting and wandering about. That can happen in that long stretch at Woodbine on the turf, but back to the main track where he's just been so good. I think he'll be a little bit more professional this time.
Just Carolyn Street turning in the Arctic. Patches O'Houlihan and bring the band home with on the inside Outlaw Kid. Running home is I'm a Gambler and First Empire, and down the outside Debab. Flag of Honor goes to the inside. Across the track, Patches O'Houlihan, and over on the inside, Outlaw Kid. Outlaw Kid, the rail, and Patches O'Houlihan drifting out. They're clear, and running home down the outside, Debab will switch course out very wide. Patches O'Houlihan, the king of the sprints. Patches O'Houlihan wins the Arctic from Debab. War Bomber is
No thought of the right-hand stick down the lane there. I would have thought maybe a little correction might have helped too, but Ryder felt that they had it in hand, so just let him kind of drift out there and finish up. Patches O'Houlihan, though, a superstar amongst the sprinters at Woodbine. Get to see him in action in the Kennedy Road. Probably last start of the year for that one, you would have to think. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the Claiming Crown. That's next up as we hit Churchill Downs on our handicapping tour of the North American scene. A Claiming Crown races races 4 through 11 on the card. They're all starter allowance races by condition. And that's important because these aren't traditional stakes races per se. They're presented like stakes races, but they're run under starter allowance conditions. And the key there is they're not subjected to non-LASIX deals. So these horses can run with LASIX because they are starter allowance races. And that's a key point for a lot of these claiming runners and horses who have been used to running with LASIX throughout much of their career. So we're not going to have a lot of changes in terms of the medication and things like that throughout the Claiming Crown series. 26th edition of the Claiming Crown began as a series, I believe. Canterbury Park was the original home, and they bounced it around some different tracks over the years. Second time at Churchill Downs. It was here at Churchill 2 years ago in 2022. Last year it was at Fairgrounds, and the winner in the big race, the Claiming Crown Jewel, there was Money Supply at Fairgrounds. We get to see Money Supply back to defend his title for Joe Sharp. He's been in a little bit of questionable form in recent starts against much tougher at Kentucky Downs, and then the Grade 1 4-star Dave. We'll see if he can get back on the beam. But Bourbon Day, Jeff, is a horse who comes off a massive allowance win last time for trainer Brad Cox, and he really hasn't done much wrong in his career. His recent form is sharp. He's a little second off the layoff, if you will. Hasn't run since the end of September, but prior to that, July. He's kind of fresh for this time of the year with 6 starts on the campaign.
Funny thing about Bourbon Day is he's primarily a grass horse. This race on the dirt. Mm-hmm. But if you look at his last 2 main track races, now granted they were both wet track races, but last time out, slop at the Aqueduct, he won off by himself, won by 7, looked really good doing it. I mean, he won by 7, so he's supposed to look good, but he did. You have to go all the way back to May of 2023 when he was running in Evangeline, when he ran an off the turf race in the mud, and he won that race by 9. And why not try him on dirt? Well, they are, Yeah. I mean, that's fine, And I like his style. He's the kind of horse that if you let him go to the lead, which he doesn't really have that much speed to do that, but if you hand him the lead, he's going to beat you. He doesn't need the lead, but he does like to lay fairly close. He's always in a good stalking second flight position. He avoids trouble that way. Very genuine and very consistent. Career top number in his most recent start. He's lightly raced. He's a 5-year-old. He's only had 16 starts, 6 wins, and he's got Brad Cox. So he's 5-2 in the morning line, and I don't see any reason why he can't win this race. I love these Claiming Crown races because they bring a lot of horses together that otherwise wouldn't race against each other. They come from everywhere. It's not like you're handicapping the same horses running against the same horses in the same types of races. This is a new group. And I think Bourbon Day, even though he's coming out of claiming races and is running against horses that have been running in stakes, I think he's good enough to beat this group. So I like Bourbon Day to win the 10th at Churchill.
Now, this Claiming Crown Jewel has 14 horses entered. 2 are on the also eligible list, but out of those 14, they come from 8 different locations last out. This is what you're talking about with a lot of different, venues and regional matchups in here. One thing about Bourbon Day I want to talk about just in a general statement, because this is a general handicapping tip here. These are starter allowance races, right? Which means the horses are running an allowance company and that they can't be claimed today. But the starter means they've started for a certain claiming price during a period of time. So the conditions of any starter allowance race are very important when you're handicapping. So you read this race and you say it's for horses that have run for $35,000 or less in 2023 or 2024. So in order to be eligible to run in this race at least once during that time period, you had to run for $35,000 or less. So for me as a handicapper, when I read the conditions of a starter allowance, I'm trying to figure out, okay, I want to find out a horse who ran for this condition once. Like they dropped into this spot one time, because you don't want a whole group of $35,000 claimers running in this $35,000 starter allowance. You're trying to find the horse who got eligible for this race by one time dropping in that low, but generally has been running better. And if you look at Bourbon Day's career past performances, it's one race, February 8th of 2024, dropped in for $30,000. Now, I also like to see the one time you dropped in for this level, what did you do? Did you win? This horse won at $30,000 and then got out of the $30,000 level and hasn't been anywhere near it since. That's what you want to see. You're trying to find a horse who, quote, fits the conditions when you're looking at starter allowance races. He fits them beautifully in here. So Bourbon Day, if you're just handicapping at Fairgrounds coming up or Gulfstream or wherever, and it's a starter allowance race, you can use those same kind of skills. Go down and look and see which horse looks least like the condition that they're demanding that you've appeared in once. And then, if you've got a horse who's been running 8 times for 20,000 and they're a 30,000 starter allowance, they're not even a 30,000 level horse. They're only a 20,000 level horse. And they're taking on horses who just dropped in, got eligible, and got out of there. And that's why you see in starter allowance races a lot of times, Jeff, these horses will run out massive win streaks, right? Because they're eligible for like the next year or 2 years, right? These are horses that maybe this horse could have dropped in 2023 at the beginning of the calendar year, dropped in 35,000 once, and has been nowhere near 35,000 for over almost 2 years and eligible to run in a race like this. So you see those horses just have an advantage and run out win streaks and starter allowances because they are, they just have an edge. And you could consider like somebody looks and says, okay, I'm going to claim a horse with the claiming crown in mind. And you'll see that in some of these races.
Yeah.
A horse dropped in, they were in below the level. I know I can run this horse back in the claiming crown. I think Ravelli's got one in one of the races that I looked at on the card who's very similar to that. So knowing the conditions of the race and these starter allowances is very important. And that's how you handicap the entire claiming crown card. Try to find horses who match up really well in there. You've got a good field in here. You got Laughing Boy, who's a horse, hasn't run for 30,000, but once 35,000, ran second to Guntown and got eligible for this race back in October of last year. So there are several different horses who might fit that kind of look, but that's where you want to start your handicapping for these kind of races.
I'll never forget. This was more than 50 years ago, so the details might be a little shaky or a little hazy.
You've got nobody to question you, though.
Yeah, that's true, too. But I remember Bobby Franco claiming a horse named Barometer, and I think he won it was either the Suburban or the Brooklyn. I'm not sure which one it was. It was grade 1. And they asked him where he was going to go next. He says, I'm looking for a starter race for him now. Because he was eligible.
Yeah.
And they didn't have claiming crowns back then, but they did have starter races. And anyway, that's where I first got introduced. I think I was like 20 years old. I was just getting into the game. And I said, what is that? But anyway, Frankel was always he was always doing some weird stuff. And for all I remember, I think he did run him back in the starter race.
I think this race runs through either the defending champ or Bourbon Day. If you want to look up my analysis for the race of the week, be sure to check it out in the ExpressBet email newsletter or in our blog section, news.first.com and expressbet.com. I'm going to try to get a couple prices in underneath the logical horses. I've got the defending champ in there, that being Money Supply on top, along with Jeff's pick in there, Bourbon Day. And then I'm going to use Spoiler and General Mathis, the 1 and the 2 horses that I think are going to get good inside trips and could be good prices. They're both double-digit odds in the morning line. I'm going to try to get the 1 or the 2 underneath in the exacta. So I basically got 3-4 over the 1-2 in some exactas. The way I'm going to try to attack the Claiming Crown Jewel. Let's go to the 11th race on the card. It's the Claiming Crown Emerald, final on the program. These are for horses that started for 25,000 or less in the last year plus. They go to the turf course at 1 mile and a 16th in this one. Who'd you like in the Emerald, Jeff?
This is the race that Segoy is in, and it was disappointing in his last start going 1.5 miles at Keeneland, but those fractions were like wicked.
Yes,
23, 46-1, 111-1. He actually hung around better than he had a right to run. My first reaction was that was kind of a disappointing race for him, but it really wasn't bad. I mean, and he's seen better horses, so. I think, again, a situation where he's seen better, he's still eligible to this race. I think he's got a chance to bounce back. I'll go with Segoy. Now, he's 2-1 on the morning line, so it's not like I'm telling you something you probably can't find yourself. But, again, he likes Churchill, and I just think that, he can be in the front. I don't think he needs to be in the front, but if he gets it, that's great. And I just think Michael Maker's, what's a claiming crown race without Michael Maker winning at least one, right?
Yeah, he's got 22 of them all time. He's got the record for the most wins in the claiming grounds. I don't think it's very close either for second most. So, yeah, I think you're in the right spot. And the other thing, too, there is there's not a lot of turf experience at Churchill Downs amongst this field, whereas what we saw in the claiming crown jewel, almost all the horses in that race, I think 13 of the 14 entered, had run at Churchill in the past. I think 8 or 9 of them had been winners over the track at Churchill in the past. They were coming from all different locations, but they had some experience at Churchill on the main. Here in this race, there's not a lot of turf experience at Churchill whatsoever, and very, very little success. So Segoy's 2 wins over the turf course. That one feels like a nice anchor, and I think one that you can count on. Like you said, a much better race than it looks on paper in the Sycamore last time out at Keeneland. Let's go out to Del Mar for our final stakes of the weekend. We're going to talk about the Desi Arnaz Stakes next up. It'll be race number 8 at Del Mar, 7 furlongs. These are 2-year-old fillies. We've got the winner of the Del Mar debutante in this race in Tenma, back for the fall, and she might not even be the best of the Bafferts, and she's the winner of the Del Mar debutante in this particular spot. Of course, if you're trying to figure out the best of the Bafferts in this 5-horse field, there are 4 of them. You got Baffert with Tenma, 2 Bar, Silent Law, and Ma Wu. He'll go up against his old assistant, Tim Yakteen, who's got Practical Dream. So it's Yakteen against the Baffert world. Jeff, how do you see it in this field of 5?
I actually ended up picking Ma Wu here. Now, Ma Wu was entered in the race, the Enokia, that Silent Law won, and Ma Wu was scratched. And then she comes back a week later and works. So I don't know whether that was an intended scratch or whether she got sick or something, but I can tell you that her work since coming back after missing the Enokia, which was late October, have been nothing short of spectacular. And she worked well before her first start, but not like she worked since. Daughter of Blame, they gave $500,000 for her at Saratoga as a yearling, so that's a lot of money for a Blame filly, and she must be out of this world in terms of her looks. And the filly that she beat in that race, Aunt Mo, came back and just parked. Ran like a filly who most likely will win the Starlet Stakes at Los Alamitos the way she won. So the form was good. The number was good. The works are good. I like the outside draw. She won from the rail. She took all the kind of heat and then still came away and won. I'm not, Tenma won the Del Mar debutante. I never was that overly impressed. If you take a first-time starter by Nyquist and she's 6-1 first time out, it means the private guys aren't that impressed with her either, right?
Right.
And she won that race by a neck, came back and won the debutante. It was a good race. It wasn't like great, but it was good. And then she got exposed in the Oakleaf. I think she might be the third best because Silent Law won both of her races under wraps, but she was kind of slowing up at the end there, Jeremy, if you look at the form. And now she's going 7/8, and she's got Ma Wu, who's going to be breathing down her neck every step of the way. I think she might be vulnerable. She's 6-5 on the morning line, and deservedly so. But I like 2-year-olds whose numbers get better, not who run fast and then drop. And Silent Law earned a 84 buyer in her debut, then went down to 78. And she went a furlong farther, which probably accounted for that drop in the number. And now she's going another furlong farther. So I think she might be vulnerable.
Right.
I think Ma Wu's going to win. I have her at 5-2 in the morning line. She may go lower, but I'd take it if I could get it. Probably go a little lower than that. But I like Ma Wu. I think she's got, not only do I think she's a good filly, I think she'll run on. She's buying Blame. Why wouldn't she?
Right.
So that's where I'm headed to Ma Wu and the Desi Arnaz.
The jockeys are interesting in here in a good way to help your price a little bit because, Juan Hernandez is going to get the first call probably for the Bafferts. He's been the regular rider for Silent Law, but Frezu rode Ma Wu in the debut, now jumps to ride the Tim Yakteen horse in here, Practical Dream. So Kazushi Kimura, who've been aboard Tenma, ends up on your horse. It's some musical jockeys going on in this particular spot, but Kimura's not a jockey who's going to take a lot of money just by his name. So I think it actually works out in your favor. If you're trying to get that 5-2, that's probably the best case scenario for you in terms of rider assignments to try to hold that price. Let's go back and take a look at the debut for Ma Wu and see what Jeff's excited about.
They turn for home. Ma Wu and Cash Call head and head most of the way. Ma Wu digs in. Cash Call now a length and a half back second. They're followed by Maximum Gold and Aunt Mo in the center of the racetrack with some momentum late as Ma Wu has put away Cash Call and opens up 4. It's Ma Wu, very sharp in victory. Ma Wu just coaxed to the wire. Aunt Mo completes the exact in front of Cash Call.
If you're playing that Del Mar card on Saturday or on Sunday, be noted about our promotion with First Bet and Express Bet. Bet $150 on the card, get a $20 rebate. That's like 7.5% back. Not a bad rebate at all. Bet $150, get $20 on the Del Mar card Saturday. Same promo is offered on Sunday. If you bet $150 on Sunday, you'll get $20 back as well. Make sure you opt into the promos when you play with First Bet and Express Bet to take advantage of all those player rewards. So bet $150, get $20 Saturday and Sunday at Del Mar. The other big promotion for the weekend, the late pick 4 on Saturday, claiming Crown Day, final 4 races in the card at Churchill. There's a $2 million first rewards hit and split offered there. So your first rewards points, $2 million of them on the line. If you hit the late pick 4 on the card Saturday at Churchill Downs, you'll split $2 million in first rewards points just with other players on the First Bet and Express Bet platforms who are opted into the promo and playing it. So chance there to really build up your first rewards. Of course, they can be redeemed for cash deposits into your account, for wagering credits, for swag, for handicapping products in the pro shop. A lot of good use for this first rewards point, so be sure to take advantage of that. And then, of course, tournament players on Saturday, we've got a $200 handicapping tournament at Santa Anita that will help feed into the Santa Anita Opening Day Challenge. The handicapping contest is for Santa Anita's opening day, December 26th. It's the Del Mar races on Saturday that you'll be playing in that handicapping contest. So be sure to check that out, expressbet.com/tournaments. All right, Jeff, we're going to wrap things up here a little quicker than usual. We're about 10 minutes ahead of schedule. I want to try to save your voice just a little bit. Hopefully the fans got the winners. That's all that matters. We want you to rest up. So you're good to go for Tuesday's podcast next week when we come back for It's Official. Don't be yelling too much at the screen for football this weekend.
Oh, I will be, but I've got a cold, not a sore throat, so I can probably hack it, handle it, But man, I mean, that's a busy week for me. I mean, I got games tonight, tomorrow, Chargers on Sunday. I mean, it's a good time of the year, and it's good for me because I don't want to get sidetracked. You know what I'm saying? I got a job to do, and sometimes you can't do too much at one time, but I've got these races covered. I also do the morning line at Del Mar. I don't want to mess that up. So I'll find time. I'll get it all in.
Well, we hope everyone out there enjoys the weekend, and we'll be back with you on Tuesday. So on behalf of Jeff and everybody with First Bet and Express Bet, I'm Jeremy Plonk. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you Tuesday.